Hello, everybody. Thank you all for coming out to the Bexley Public Library today. My name is Zach Parrish. I'm the programming librarian here. So just a quick note on today's program. This is a hybrid program, so we're very lucky to have all of you come out and join us in person, especially on this blustery winter night that we're having. But we also have an audience at home joining over the live stream. So when we get to the end of the program, and if we have time for questions, for those in the room, please just raise your hand and I'll come around with the mic. That way those online can hear what we are talking about. And then for those joining online, feel free to type any questions into the chat throughout the presentation and we will get those asked at the end. I'm going to do a quick library plug. We have a ton of wonderful programs coming up, so if you don't have our winter program guide, you can grab one from the back counter tonight. I just want to plug two quick programs. This Sunday, we have Tea at 3 with Lily Bloom, and that begins at 3 o'clock on Sunday. So we're excited to have that wonderful concert here. And then next Thursday, we have More Voice, More Choice, learning about ranked choice voting with Rank the Vote Ohio. And that will be next Thursday, January 23rd at 6:30. For tonight, we are very happy to be joined by Hanna Hughes, who is a professional organizer and the owner of Wrangle Your Space, which is a professional organizing company in Columbus, Ohio, that prioritizes sustainability. Once a former science teacher, she is passionate about transforming lives and promoting eco-friendly and earth-conscious actions through organizing. Please join me in welcoming Hanna Hughes.
Thanks, Zach. Oh, weird, the mic. I really need to just carry you around in my back pocket, Zach. Thank you for the intro. So yeah, I'm Hanna Hughes. Thanks again for joining me tonight. I'm the owner of Wrangle Your Space, a sustainable professional organizing company here in Columbus. And I am a Bexley alum. Go Montrose Moose, if we have any of those in the house. So it's really surreal for me to be here tonight, growing up and coming to the Bexley Library, graduating from Bexley High School. So it's really just crazy for me tonight. So thank you so much for having me. Tonight I'm gonna talk about getting organized for good. So my goal is, by the end of this, for you to learn about not only how to really get organized from the ground up, but how to do so in a way that doesn't necessarily harm the environment or minimalize harm for the environment. So the last time I talked to this many people in one room probably would have been when I was teaching here. My previous career, I was a middle school teacher, emphasis on the middle school here with the headache that I have probably. I really did love my students, but they would always come in at lunchtime and take my phone and take pictures of me. So this is one of those pictures. But I used to be a middle school science teacher. And in my research, through my curriculum writing with middle school science, I really developed and fostered this connection and love for our planet. So that started in my 7-year teaching career. And this is my family. So when my oldest daughter, May, here was about a year old, I decided to leave the teaching profession to be a stay-at-home mom. And wow, I never would have imagined that I would start my own organizing business. But through a series of events, which I'll talk through a little bit more here in a couple minutes, I really found my passion for organizing and developing simple functional systems to help your home feel the best that it can for you, the most functional way, and make sure that everything in your house has a home. So I kind of trialed and errored and started taking on clients when my youngest, Gwen here, was very young, and basically I never stopped getting clients. So I said to myself, I'm like, okay, if I'm actually gonna do this and build a company, I want to make sure that I'm combining my love for organizing with my love for our environment. So that's kind of how all of this came about. Okay, so we're going to start to think about organizing now. And my biggest takeaway for you that I want you to experience for yourself is when you're standing at that bat, about to enter your home, I want you to feel really happy about your house. I really want you to love your house again, okay? I want you to love being in there. I want you to feel peaceful in your home. And you look around and just feel like, yes, there's nothing off. Okay, maybe something like this. Like, I know this closet here might not be perfect, but everything has a place and everything is put up. When you look at this picture, it feels peaceful, it feels serene. Not just because it's clean, but because everything has a home. Okay, that's what I want for you. I love this quote here. It says, when we clear the physical clutter from our lives, we literally make way for inspiration and good, orderly direction to enter. I was talking to someone about that at the beginning of this, where you can literally feel more creative and inspired if your space is organized. Because your brain doesn't have any tabs open thinking about, that thing that's on the floor or this other thing, you don't know where to put it, so it just gets put over here. Even in your brain, things have a spot, so you just feel better and more open to think about what you want to think about. So I would say right now, in the world, we do have a sort of crisis of stuff. So this is a storage unit here. I thought these are some really interesting facts. The volume of self-storage units in the country could fill the Hoover Dam more than 26 times. The self-storage industry is worth over $30 billion a year. What? And around 10% of Americans pay over $1,000 a year on storage. The storage unit may actually be in your house or garage, if any of you can relate to this. And it would be the most expensive storage unit because it's your house, so. This one is great too. One day, son, all this will be yours. Has anyone experienced this personally? Yes. Definitely. Sorry, Mom, not you, but definitely, this is something that my clients definitely experience often. Okay, where things are passed down to them and they don't know what to do with it. It kind of ends up in the garage or whatever, and then they're like, okay, this doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. I don't know what to do with it. 2.5 days per year is what some people spend looking for things that they just don't know where they are. This one is actually directly aimed at my husband. That I see you right now. Maybe you can relate to this as well. Where are my keys? Where's my phone? Where's all the stuff I need to get out the door? It's hard for me to find. So there's one word that I hear more than any others combined when I'm working with clients, and that is that they feel overwhelmed in their space. They send me a message, they submit a contact form, they call me, Hannah, I don't know what to do, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. So if you can relate to that, I'm really glad you're here tonight. I'm gonna be walking you through the process of how to get organized. So hopefully you can take this back to your home and not feel as overwhelmed. And please just know that organizing is achievable, no matter where you're starting. Even if you feel like you're not an organized person, you've never been, how's this even possible for you? Maybe it just really feels out of reach. I'm not lying. If you feel committed to this, it can happen. And I know because I've done it myself. So this might look like a really random picture here, but I want you to think back to the beginning of those two girls that I have. When my oldest was a couple months old. Actually, if we go before that, I signed the papers, the closing papers on my current home, which is this house right here, when I was in active labor with my daughter, my firstborn. That same coming school year, I was starting in a new school. I was teaching a new subject area, so I basically had a brand new job at a new place, moving into a new house that needed renovated, and I was so overwhelmed. This is the only photo I got of that time of my life in my house, because it was just, talk about overwhelmed, that's exactly what I was. I never considered myself a very organized person before, not that I was not organized, but It was just whatever to me. Like, I didn't really think about it. So when I really had to move in, figure out my space, which doesn't have a lot of storage, by the way, and I know Bexley houses are kind of iffy on the storage as well. So if you feel like your home doesn't have a lot of storage space, I'm there too, and I really had to crack the code on my home, as well as dealing with these two young girls that are transitioning, and their needs are transitioning, and our space needs are transitioning, and how can we really get organized from the ground up here? I figured that out for myself, and seriously, if I could do that during that time of my life, I know you can too. So just know I see you if you've struggled with clutter and disorganization for years and feel overwhelmed or don't know where to start. That's okay. That's normal. The emotions you feel about your spaces might include being overwhelmed, frustrated, anxious, mad, annoyed, angry, fill in the blank, really. That's normal too. Maybe you've tried to get organized before and start strong, fizzle fast, or you get organized but can't maintain it and your space just kind of keeps going back to messy. That's super, super common. You can still get organized. Before we get into the process of how to get organized, I just want to touch on 3 things that do not work when you're trying to get organized. You can't see it. It says mistake 1 up there, I promise. But mistake 1, buying a ton of bins and organizing supplies, containers, whatever, thinking that will make us get organized. So please put your stuff inside more stuff. Don't actually. This photo right here is actually from a client, and this is after the decluttering process. So after we kind of went through and figured out their inventory, these were all the containers that I had set aside that I had found through that process. So you can tell that the investment in those products doesn't necessarily mean that that person was happy because they ended up hiring me to get them organized. So the trip to the store will come last, okay? And then I will throw a little shade here. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna throw a little bit of shade. If you are a watcher of the Home Edit or any kind of shows like that really prioritize, you're not organized unless you have 1 million of these clear plastic bins. I don't think that is what really makes somebody organized. Even though we'll talk about that up there, okay? We'll talk about that. Don't worry about those. I know what you're thinking. And so yes, the trip to the store comes last in the process. This is mistake number 2. I have to keep all these things in case I might need them someday. They might come in handy. This is something that a lot of people think about, and I'll be honest, I think about it too, in my own home. Should we really get rid of this leftover hardware from this IKEA build or just some random stuff like that? So these are pretty funny. By age 35, you should have a huge box of cables, but you can't throw them out because you're pretty sure that you still need a couple of them, but you really don't know which ones. I can relate to that, so maybe you can too. And then, the big drawer or the whatever you have in your home of manuals, that's in every single house that I organize. And it's are you using that? When have you ever went to look something up in those manuals? If you can find it online, quick tip, if you can find it online and you probably don't need the information that much, recycle it. These are the 4 swear words of organizing, okay? Might, could, maybe, and someday also, if you can use them all in a sentence, even better. So if you do this with some things, I think that's okay. But if you're really holding on to a lot of stuff and this is your mindset for a lot of them, consider maybe putting it aside, and then if you really don't go for it after a month, 2 or 3, maybe it's time to get rid of it. Mistake number 3, this is our last mistake, buying into organizing gimmicks, just organize for 5 minutes a day, or throw away X things per day is gonna get you organized. I see a lot of these online as freebies. This really hooks you in, but Decluttering and organizing is a real commitment, like I've already kind of touched on before. You've really got to be committed to the whole process. Future you says thanks. Okay, so let's say we've gone through all that. You're like, okay, sweet, I get it. All right, now like I'm ready to be organized. That's what I love to hear. Okay, yes. And you're here tonight, so you're probably ready too. So let's get into it. So before we get into the process, I do want to ask you, are you or do you strive to be an eco-conscious consumer? So somebody who really considers what something is made of, amongst other factors before you're buying it, or maybe how much you buy of it. And then also, what is eco-friendly organizing to begin with? To me, in my work, I consider to have three main parts, or three main pillars here. So under eco-friendly organizing, we have declutter responsibly, then use what you have, and then after you've done that, invest in eco-friendly products if needed. So these are our three pillars we're going to be returning to. And then why eco-friendly organizing in the first place? Like, who cares? Seriously, Hannah? Well, improper waste disposal, which is the first part of getting organized, getting rid of your stuff, plus excessive consumption of non-biodegradable materials. So let's say you just go to the store and buy a bunch of like plastic bins or whatever. If you're just doing both of these, just like, and not even caring, not even thinking about it, this can lead to some harmful things. Pollution, increased greenhouse gas emissions, and overall environmental degradation. Now I know, we are a very small part of the puzzle to the climate change crisis. But if we can do our part and be mindful of the decisions we're making, why not, right? Now, I'm not going to get into this today, but has anyone ever been in this En-ROADS climate simulator? Okay, I might show you real quick. Do you think I can do it, Zach? Click the link. It might be hard with the... I'm not gonna do it. Okay, so this presentation, you'll be able to get at the end of this. I'll have like a QR code and you can get into it. I really encourage you to click into this. So I got a gifted endorsement for teaching back in that time of my life. And in it, I learned about En-ROADS Climate Solution Simulator. And within that, you can play with different variables of our world and see how it affects literally like degrees Celsius, like climate change. So that's one of my strongest driving factors for this, and I just check that out if you can. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the process. Okay, so we know we wanna be more mindful of the decisions that we're making, right? And we will embed that mindfulness into this process, okay? But I'm gonna go in order of the organizing process right now. So to make the magic happen, we're gonna 1, prioritize, 2, categorize, 3, downsize, and 4, reorganize. So let's get into it. The first step is to prioritize. So what really is like the thing that's driving you the most insane? You know what I mean? What's the most pressing thing in your house that needs to get organized? And, oh, yes. If you could wave your wand and have something fixed, what space would it be? Thanks, May, for the wand. So maybe, winter is coming. It's here, actually. And we can't park our cars in the garage. So maybe it's driving you just insane. So maybe it's the garage. There's unopened mail on every surface of your office. I don't know where my passport is. Okay? Maybe you have a paper crisis. And if you could just... maybe that's where you start. Or the kids can't find any of their toys, and there are Legos everywhere. Parents, where I'm just now entering my Lego era with my kids, and it's killing my feet. So you really need to decide where your priority lays, make that decision, and then go from there. It seems pretty straightforward, but if you don't lay that foundation, you could kind of get lost in the overall process. Okay, the second step is to categorize, okay? So this is really the key part to making this work. And this is what a lot of people don't do when they try to get organized. And then when they don't do it, it can become extremely overwhelming. So I definitely recommend you do this. Oh, before we get into it, I just like this. When you're decluttering and get distracted by all the cool stuff you find, can anybody relate? When they're trying to clean their room and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is also my husband here. So when we're categorizing, we're breaking big projects, overwhelming things down, and that helps make them not only more manageable, but also helps your brain process and make decisions easier. This is what helps your overwhelm right here. Being able to make decisions as easily as possible, because it is your stuff that you're working with. And if you stand somewhere and you look at every single thing and have to make decisions for like 4 hours straight, you're gonna get burnt out and you're never gonna do it again. So when we categorize, kind of like I just said, it lets you know what you have, how much you have, reduces your overwhelm, and helps you know exactly what you need to do moving forward. So when we categorize, we take a big category and then break it down as detailed as we can. Get as specific as we can within that category. So let's say you're working with clothing. Okay, if you're like, I got too many clothes right now. Okay, we're not gonna start with just your main closet. It's like, go get all your clothes, wherever they are in the house, and put them together, okay? Then we're gonna break it down from there. So then you might separate out work clothes, athleisure clothes, casual clothes, coats, shoes, and accessories, just as an example. Okay, but we're not gonna stop there. No. You're then going to be breaking those categories down even more specifically. Okay, so you could do this from the start once you get the hang of how to do this. But let's say like with athleisure, you're not just gonna have a big pile of athleisure clothes. You're going to then separate those into their own groups. Okay, so then you're gonna have black athleisure leggings, colored athleisure leggings, sweatshirts, tank, you know what I mean? Like, be as specific as you can when you're breaking those categories down. And yes, you're gonna have stuff everywhere. That's okay as part of the process, so just kind of like embrace that. And Hannah, is 37 pairs of black yoga pants too many? Asking for a friend. You know, I'm gonna let you be the judge of that, but me, I'm gonna be like, I have 2. But that's okay, everybody's different with how much you have, but it's good to know how much you have. So this is especially helpful in rooms where you have lots of stuff or lots of different types of things. For example, this garage. These people didn't have a basement, so literally all their stuff that they didn't use like every day had to go in the garage. If you weren't gonna categorize this and you were just gonna go around this room and be like making decisions on what you wanted and didn't want out of all this, I'm telling you, like I said before, that would be too much for your brain to handle, okay? So categorizing is essential. Okay, the third step in the process is to downsize. You don't need more space, you need less stuff. This is why I tell people all the time when we're decluttering, I'm like, hey, you can keep whatever you want, but if you keep it, it could be harder to organize it just because, you know, we only have this much space to work with. So just keep that in mind, okay? And we will be talking about how to downsize responsibly in this section. So when we're downsizing, consider, when was the last time you used this? Did you use the words might, could, maybe, or someday to describe this item? How many of these items or similar items do you have? How many do you need? Okay, this is when you're looking at that pile of leggings. Or I had a consultation this week, and it was for their kitchen, and I was like, just so you know, I'm gonna be putting all your crock pots together. So you're gonna be looking at your 6 crock pots, and I'm gonna say, how many of these do you really need? You know, and they're like, okay, that's actually probably gonna help me make decisions here. Also, are you keeping this out of a sense of guilt? Maybe you spent money on it, so you know you feel bad getting rid of it because you spent money on it, which is very normal. Shame, possibly, or another emotion. These are all very common. So feel what you need to feel and kind of go with the flow, but I would say go with your gut. when you have to make decisions about your stuff. Okay, but what do I do with it all? So you've made decisions, hey, this stuff I'm gonna keep, this stuff like I don't want. Okay, like what do I do now? Enter pillar 1, declutter responsibly. Okay, how do we do this? First of all, why should we do it? I'm not gonna read through all these. Like I said, you can read through this in more detail when I give you the QR code here. But a lot of these really stand out to me and are a huge motivator for me to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence when I like get rid of people's stuff. So the Franklin County landfill receives approximately 1 million tons of waste annually. It serves as the primary disposal site for Columbus and nearby areas. 1 million tons every year is insane. Like growing up, I heard, and this could be way off base, but like one, dump truck was like a ton. Weighed a ton. So if there were 1 million of those sitting in the landfill every single year is nuts, right? And a lot of those most of that is not going to break down and decompose anywhere close to our lifetime, okay? So this is where I'm thinking like, what is our responsibility here when it comes to waste disposal? So instead of panicking and just being like, I don't want to see this, and just putting it all on the curb on trash day, please consider your options. Now, if you want, you can scan this QR code and follow the prompts, and it'll take you to a guide that I put together, a responsible decluttering resource guide for Columbus of where to take your stuff if you want to. Also in this presentation, these are all linked, so you'll have access to those links as well. I'm not gonna click them now because I'm afraid I'm not gonna be able to get back into this. But recycling is one of the easiest things you can do, okay? If you have never heard of SWACO, Recycle Right, I have that linked up here with recycling. You can go to that website and enter anything that you have, okay? Tire, paint can, whatever, literally anything, clothes. And it'll tell you where you can recycle it in Columbus, or if it cannot be recycled in Columbus, what you should do, okay? So I highly recommend starting there. They also have a lot of, SWACO has drive-up recycling dumpsters throughout the city. I don't know if you've ever been to, and you can take certain things that they approve of. If you have a large amount of them, instead of putting them out for curbside, put them in that, load it in your trunk, take it there, and then you don't have to think about it anymore. Donating, oh my gosh, there's just endless options with donating. The one I have linked is how to donate textiles in Columbus, which actually is pretty tricky to donate textiles, depending on what you want to do with them. You can take them to Goodwill, which is fine, but there's considerations with choosing a nonprofit like that. But anyways, for my full list of where to donate things in Columbus that I found so far, check out my guide. There's also gifting, so you can just think about, are there other people in your life that could use this? I wouldn't offload all your stuff on people, but if you want to be thoughtful and think about people in that way, maybe they would like some sort of donation from you. Repurposing, oh, this is great. If you click this link in my presentation, there's this crazy Reddit thread that people talk about the things that they've repurposed from their home, and it's pretty awesome. So something I advocate a lot to my clients is shopping your home, which we will get into in a little bit, but is there something you want to have in your house for some reason that maybe you could actually find in your own home, or repurpose something you have to make that work? You get to get creative, but if that's an option, I would repurpose instead of putting it in the trash. There are specialized waste programs available in Columbus, like the Household Hazardous Waste Program. Means you can take stain, old fire extinguishers, stuff like that maybe you just have sitting around because you don't know what to do with. They'll take it, just drop it off for free. Why wouldn't you? It just takes some time. And then community sharing. Do I have any Facebook Marketplace truthers on here? Yes. Yes. Buy nothing groups, obsessed. Okay. You can throw stuff up on buy nothing groups on Facebook, and people will come within the hour and snatch it up. Okay. If you want to share with your community, like directly. So yeah, there's lots of options. Like I said, this and way more details available in my my guide linked here, and also have this link at the end for you. Quick tip. If you're organizing like a lot of areas of your home, or it's one area, but you end up with like a lot of stuff that you want to figure out where it needs to go to, instead of making like a bunch of little trips, please just set stuff like in your garage or put it aside and do like one big kind of drive around drop off to reduce mileage if you can. Or else it's going to be like, oh, I'll make a little trip here, I'll make a little trip here, I'll make a little trip here. And then you're going to get tired of doing that. So that's just a little something that I do. So. Oh, and then doing this, of course, takes intentionality. You know, it would be so much easier to just throw stuff away. But you're here tonight, you know, just try to put some mindful effort into what you're doing with your stuff. I encourage you to do that. Okay, we're at the last step, you guys. Reorganizing. Weird. So once you know exactly what you have in the space, okay, you've gotten rid of the stuff that you don't want, and now you're left with these categories of your things that you do want to live in your home. Okay, what do we do with them, right? So doesn't it feel so nice if you were to open a drawer and you see all of your stuff like grouped nicely together? It's just, I get really excited about it. You know, like I think it's like exhilarating, but it feels so good in the least to know that you know what you have and where it is, like minimally, okay? Okay, rule number 1 with this, there are no rules, okay? So let's say, sorry about that. So maybe you think, hey, you know, this has always been here, this little table, or maybe you always kept like a bunch of candles in one area or something like that. Just because you have always done that doesn't mean that's how your space planning needs to stay or stay in the future, okay? Things can move around. This is the living room. I can't make it into an office. I don't play like that, okay? It's like, be creative and think about the potential of your space. I have to XYZ because that's how everyone else does it. No. What is gonna work the best for your home and you and your family's needs now and then also moving forward, right? Because life is always evolving. We have people coming in and out of our lives. It's like your stuff is always evolving. And I encourage you here also, when you're thinking about where your stuff goes, to be open-minded and get creative with that. Rule 2, so when we are physically reorganizing our things, we want to keep like things together. So all those black leggings that you found, don't split them up. If you can, try to do everything you can to make sure each category stays together when you are deciding kind of like your final layout of your space. And then when you have them together, you want to give them boundaries, or else things could get a little unruly, okay? So here's an example of giving things boundaries, a couple different things. This is in a drawer. You're grouping your like things together, right? You have your receipts, and your receipts have a boundary, okay? You've got your change has a boundary. Things that are kind of go together similarly will have boundaries. On a larger scale, this is in a garage, okay? These are holiday decorations, and they all have their boundaries. It's not like each decoration is just sitting on the shelf. So you want to keep prime real estate for important things, okay? So if you use something like once a year, it should not be like in a drawer that you will, that you can open all the time by like your kitchen sink or something, you know? You want to make sure the stuff that you're using often is very easier for you to get to, okay? If it's far away or it's just tricky to put it back, you're not going to. It's just going to get thrown somewhere, right? So you want to make it as easy as possible for yourself, okay? So potato masher, you actually might use that a lot. Me, I don't. That's like a couple times a year thing, so that stays kind of away. The holiday cookie cutters, probably don't need to be in the silverware drawer. And then the turkey baster, we don't need that out, okay? So how do we know what type of boundary to give it? And please be mindful that there's so many variables here to consider. So like you really do need to take into account like how much space you have and how much that you need to contain before you move forward with this step. But how do we know what type of boundary to give it? Well, this is where we start talking about our bins and like our containers and everything. So first, I want you to shop your home and use what you have initially. Okay, is there something in your house that you can use to give this thing a boundary that maybe is not being used at all, or maybe it's being used for something else, but you don't really need to use it for that thing, so you can use it for this, okay? Shop your home first, and then if you've done that and you still need some, or that's just not even an option, and please then consider investing in eco-friendly products. Oh, oops, I'm backwards. Why should we have and invest in eco-friendly products or use what we have first? Well, in Columbus, most plastic waste ends up in landfills. Plastics take hundreds of years to decompose, accelerating landfill capacity issues. When they do degrade, they degrade into microplastics. Production relies heavily on petroleum and natural gas. If you play with the En-ROADS simulator, you can play with oil and natural gas, which is exactly what like raw plastic materials are made out of, and see how that affects literally like the climate over time, like the temperature. So it's really fascinating. So you guys can read through more of those, but to me, this is a no-brainer, right, of why we should be more mindful about what we're consuming. So before going to the store for all new storage supplies, which I know is easy, think about, can you make the containers you already have work? Like I said, shop your home. Do you have something that can work from there? Do you know of anyone looking to get rid of some containers? So there's this photo again, but this is in the garage I did. I used everything that the client already had, purchased nothing new, but you should have seen it before. I actually didn't even get before pictures, which was a mistake, okay? But you don't need to buy new stuff to make sure you know where your stuff is and that it is a functional system for you. This is another client that I had. Again, with this project, I used nothing new at all, but this is the before, and then that's the after. So you really need to get creative here and think about how you can use containers that they already have in your end product. So if you are using existing organizing supply, if using existing organizing supplies isn't an option, that's okay. But if you need to go to the store, like I said, let's try and use an eco-friendly approach. So the first thing I would do, if you have the time, is finding pre-used organizing supplies from like a vintage, thrift, consignment, or general resale shop. I do love Eclectics. Do I have any Eclectics lovers in here in Clintonville? That place is amazing. It's kind of like a vintage store, but it's not like you're gonna know what they have though, or if what they have will even work for your space. So this is really tricky to do. You almost have to go like all the time if you wanna commit to buying pre-used containers, unless you go to Facebook Marketplace and someone's getting rid of them, you know exactly what they have in their listing. That's another option that you can do too. But if that's not an option for you, like for me, it probably wouldn't be because I have 2 young girls at home. I don't have time for that. Like I literally can't even get in the car most of the time to do anything. So that's hard for me. There definitely are options out there for you that are more eco-friendly. These are all recycled plastic options for containers, as are these up here, okay? So these are from iDesign. They're the only kind of more like mass marketed recycling bins that I've found. These are made out of 60% recycled plastic, which could be better, but it's like the best one that's on the market, which is kind of ridiculous. But you can tell, you wouldn't even be able to tell. Looks like a regular bin. They have all different sizes, okay? So you can go recycled plastic. These are all linked too in the presentation where those are from, but all kinds of different sorts of plastic organizing products available. iDesign, they have a pledge, which is great, but they do divert plastic waste from landfills, which is awesome. And then by 2030, they'd like to have all of their plastic products 100% recycled plastic, which is great. It kind of reminds me of the global methane pledge, which is by 2030, globally, they'd like to have methane emissions down 30% from 2020 levels. And they have different nations that opt into that. So that's something else you could look into too. Just the 2030 thing was like in my brain, so. There's more biodegradable products that you can purchase. So I have a couple up there, like cotton is still because cotton requires a lot of water to grow. But the square one is paper. So that one's right there. That's from Target. We have wood containers, bamboo. This is jute. That's like some sort of wood product. Okay, those are more, eco-friendly than like raw plastic. And then these containers right here are glass and metal. Certain types of metal are okay or better than others, but in general, metal and glass are more like endlessly recyclable. Okay, so that would still be a better choice than plastics. And again, all these photos are linked in my presentation. Okay, so just to reiterate, the organizing process, you're gonna prioritize, categorize, downsize, and then reorganize your stuff, okay? Now, you can do this by category of thing, like we kind of talked about clothing, or you could do it by room, or you could break down your room into sections depending on how much stuff and space it is and depending on what else you have going on in your home. So, final advice, the don'ts. Okay, don't be too hard on yourself. Everybody starts somewhere. Don't keep things out of guilt or might, okay? Be realistic with yourself here. Do you really use this? If not, you'll probably feel better if you don't have it. Fear of letting go. Don't make decisions for others, which is hard for me with my poor husband, but if it's someone else's stuff and they're not necessarily on board with it, you deciding what to do with it is not gonna be a good relationship move, okay? So just be mindful of that. Don't fear that you're creating too much waste if you are being intentional about what you're doing. And then also don't think perfection is the end goal, okay? Whatever perfection means, that's made up anyways. So don't let that hinder you from starting. And then the do's. Do you start small? Okay, don't take on your whole garage this weekend, please. Don't do that, okay? I just wrapped up a garage job and no, wait till the spring, okay? And also, just try one eco-friendly organizing tip this week and see how it feels, You can go there. The nice thing about organizing is not the end of the world type of thing, okay? You can always come back to it. Your stuff is always gonna be there for you, And I love this by the legend Marie Kondo. The moment you start tidying the moment you start tidying, you reset your life. I love this. It's really true. If you commit to this process and you start tidying, you're making a really valuable choice for future you. Okay, so that's the last slide, you guys. Okay, so if you want my responsible decluttering resource guide and access to this presentation with all the links, you can scan this QR code. All you have to do is pull up your camera and point it at it, and then a little link will populate and you click that, okay? You just have to enter your email and you'll get to the page of my site that has all this stuff. And this is weird too. Do you remember that weird photo of when I had just moved into my house and there were boxes sitting around? This is that same room. Okay, guys, I finally got it together. And yeah, so thank you so much for being here with me tonight. I hope you learned something. I hope this was valuable for your time. This was a lot of fun for me. So thanks for even like listening to me. It's so weird. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, we'll start here.
Oh, okay.
You said textiles are hard to get rid of. Why?
Well, I think I meant textiles are hard to recycle. I said that and I was like, A lot of people accept clothing, but if you're trying to donate to a shelter, a lot of the times they won't accept clothing because they might get so many and it's hard for them to go through. So it's not like it's actually hard to donate clothes. It's harder to recycle them. So I kind of misspoke there. Yeah, most places like thrift shops or whatever will accept clothing if you want to take them there. Good question.
I'm serious. If anybody in this room needs a lot of pots and pans,
Oh!
I got new stuff.
Let's get community sharing going.
Yeah.
I should have brought papers and like written out. I love it. Pots and pans.
Yeah.
Okay.
New stove has come back in. So.
I love it. I love it. If no one approaches you, do the buy nothing thing. If no one approaches you, you should throw them up like on. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They'll grab them up.
This
Yeah.
is just personal. Where on earth can you get rid of car seats and cribs that are no longer usable?
What is it?
Car seats and cribs.
Oh. Why would the crib not be usable?
Because it's the kind of crib that goes down, and they said they're not safe anymore, and you're not supposed to use them. And the car seats are fine.
Yes. They expire. Yeah, they expire. Yeah, if it's something like that, I would definitely check Recycle Right, the Swaco Recycle Right website first and start there and type in car seats and see what they say. There might be some specialized programs that I'm not aware of in Columbus that they know that's a problem and they make it their job to figure out how to get those recycled. So I would start there. And if that's not possible, then it's maybe a matter of like breaking those things down and then recycling the parts of it that can be recycled, you know? Good question.
Target does, like, you can trade in. I think they do it twice a year.
Uh-huh.
You can trade in your car seat, and they'll give you, like, 20% off. Like, you're not getting anything else for it, but you can bring it there, and they'll take it.
Amazing.
But my question
Yes.
for you is, like, I noticed in the picture with, like, the Q-tips in the drawer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so cute, love that.
Right.
But then you have to also store the box of Q-tips to, like, replenish. And that's where I start to, like, get frustrated with organizing. I'm, like, a pretty organized person. When I told my husband I was coming here tonight, he's like, you're probably, like, very much ahead of the game. But
Yeah.
that, like, so, like, I'm there.
Is it this one or no?
No, the Q-tips. It was, like, the bathroom drawer that was, like, very serene and lovely.
Like with the soaps and the washcloths.
Oh, yeah, from that. Okay, yeah. This one.
There. So
Oh.
cute, love that. I have that, but then to refill that, I have to store like the whole box of
Yeah.
Q-tips. And then I'm finding like, so now I'm looking for like double storage, you know, like
Right.
cute place for my Q-tips for like 2 weeks, and then like the plastic box of Q-tips somewhere else.
Yes. So I'm the same way. I'm the same way. Like, I'm not a massive decanter of like taking stuff, like especially in pantries, you know, and taking stuff out of their original packaging and like putting it in something else. So in that case, you know yourself. You know you don't like storing that like back stock bathroom item somewhere else because you have to go and get it and then take it. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the point? So in that instance, I would do something different. You know, if you never want that big thing of Q-tips like in your bathroom area, you either have to get a container that's large enough to like fit that entire box and like decant the entire thing when you bring it home, okay, and then just wait till that's gone and then buy a new one and take it out. Or you're gonna have to separate them, you know. So if it's something like that where it's really only available in larger quantities, you don't want to have back stock of that item. I would encourage you to use vertical space if possible, because you're not going to want a bunch of like large containers of stuff like that on your counters. Like that would drive me insane. Like, can you have like a over the door hanger? Like Alpha has one. where you can keep a bunch of stuff in, but it's like out of the way. It doesn't take up your counter space. You know, can you hang something on the wall that can hold random things like that? Okay, if you don't want to like decant and separate them. So it's hard to give like an exact recommendation without seeing it. But if you know you don't like doing that, you're not going to do it, then set up a different system for yourself that you will do to contain them. Is that helpful? Okay.
Do you have any suggestions for having conversations with your family that keeps bringing items into your home, or is maybe disorganized from you in a different way, so you're adding to different kinds of clutter?
Do you want to be more specific? Because I could talk about this all day, so let's see what you got.
An example might be, hey, I found this on sale. I know you would love it, and I do love it, but I also don't want more stuff. So like, oh, I love it. Can you take it back?
Okay.
Or maybe I have a lot of stuff that I need to go through, and I'm disorganized in this way,
right,
where my partner might be disorganized in a different way.
Yeah.
So maybe creating a system together, or how to have conversations around creating a system
together. Is the person
together.
getting you the sale stuff like someone that lives with you? Mm-hmm. Oh, well. So just with my personality type, I'm more direct. You know, if that were to happen and I like didn't want it in the house, I'd be like, we're just going to take it back. But if you like care about hurting their feelings, which I probably should be better about, then just maybe explain like where you're coming from, you know, like and maybe if they're really visual too, like show pictures, like I want this space to feel like this to me, like how does this type of space make you feel? And then have a conversation of like, okay, well, if we're gonna do this, then we need to be intentional about what we're bringing into this home. That happens a lot too, like when you have kids and people like get your kids stuff, you're like, now I have to be responsible for this thing. Like, where's it gonna live? Where's this stuff go, you know? So if it's something that you can be like upfront with, I would just be upfront and have that conversation. Now, if you're disorganized in different ways, that can be interesting. And that way, you could learn from each other. And if you're both interested in getting more of like a holistic, organized home, then that's something you both could like tackle and learn about together. If you're going to be really like particular about something, which I am particular about everything, so like I'm like the worst when it comes to this, but if you're going to be particular about it and like you want a certain way no matter what, I would just be like, hey, listen, I need you to do this 15-minute reset like every other night, or else like this isn't going to work. You know, like we need to be in agreement on this. But I think showing them kind of your thought process on why you think this and what you're hoping to achieve with maybe changing some routines in your home, like could be beneficial for both of you. And that way you just start off on this foundation that's the same. I feel like I'm literally just blabbering. I hope this makes sense, what I'm saying. Okay.
Next question.
Yes.
When it comes to like somebody starting from the very bottom,
Yeah.
or like we had the conversation earlier, like I'm a pack rat. Do you recommend, or like what is your take on like just starting from the very bottom, like working with the pillars and whatnot? Do you suggest or recommend like starting with one specific room, or do you suggest and recommend starting with like the whole like getting rid of and then recategorizing, or like what rooms would you recommend to start the most with without like really getting overwhelmed with it because of time?
That's a great question.
And everything else.
So I would respond to your question with another question real quick, which would be, everybody's space, all their stuff is different. If you're going to start with a room, you kind of want to make sure that what's in your room, like what the room's purpose is for, and you don't have like a bunch of stuff that's in that room in other areas. So if you feel like you have a lot of overlap in the types of things you have in your different spaces, okay, like the clothing, like you keep your clothing in different rooms, okay, it's going to be better for you in the long run to start with a category instead of a room, okay? Because you have that stuff spread out throughout your home. It's like, just get all that stuff in one space. And you need to decide what that new home is for your space after you figure out what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep, okay? Because one of the keys to being organized is making sure you have your stuff in one central location. That's its home within your home, and you always know where to find it, you know. So I would think about that. You know, if you have a room and the stuff you have in that room really isn't in a lot of other areas of your home at all, then you can start with the room for sure. Or you can start with part of a room, okay? And go from there, like the kitchen. Usually you don't have like a lot of kitchen stuff in other areas of your home. So if you just want to start in the kitchen, that's great. But living room things, you know, stuff like that, that can kind of like be placed in different areas. So I would consider that before starting. And then if there's something, like, you got to think about your priority too. If there's just something in your home, like an area that's really driving you insane, maybe you just like have a lot of this one type of thing and you just wish you didn't and that was all solved, then start with that whatever that is. Because then once you declutter and figure out the home for those things, you're going to start to like build momentum to keep going with other areas. So we can talk more specifically about your situation too if you want after. Yeah. Good question. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes.
There used to be, I guess you'd call it an email group called FreeCycle.
Yeah. I have heard of FreeCycle.
They were wonderful. The people would post if they were looking for something.
Oh, I love that.
We had a printer to give away, and somebody who was a new immigrant needed a printer, and just came and picked it up. And we didn't know. But about 5 years ago, it got hacked, and I haven't seen it at all.
Oh.
Do you know whether it's come back at all?
I mean, free, not like was that an email list you said? Or something similar to that?
Recycle's there.
The website or email?
Oh, okay. I don't know about that specifically, but there's different Buy Nothing groups on Facebook. So like I live in Worthington, so I'm a member of the Buy Nothing Worthington group. And on certain days of the week, on Facebook, yeah, there's a FreeCycle group on Facebook for Columbus, if you want to look that up. Okay, well, so yeah, I'm talking about a Facebook group too. So like there's different groups on Facebook that are Buy Nothing groups, and you can post stuff you're looking for on like Mondays or something, and the people can respond, oh, I have that here, come and get it. But yeah, like that's on Facebook that I know about. But I mean, depending on what's in the community, there might be things like this, like within Bexley that I'm not aware of, and like maybe a coffee shop or something, or, you know, like Capitol might have something like that. I would ask around. Yes. Yes.
There are nonprofits like Jewish Family Services,
Uh-huh.
Chris, and other areas that work for nonprofits that work with people coming from other countries and resettlement.
Yes.
And so kitchen stuff and new clothes and some furniture and that kind of stuff, you know, they'll take it. You got to sometimes take it to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a great place to
Yes, and that's definitely like super important right now too, is thinking about like where are the greatest needs within our community, and you know, if you can help meet those needs through stuff that you don't need anymore, like that's just a fantastic way to keep the community together. I agree. Yeah. These are all great.
Hannah, thank you so much. This is a wonderful presentation. For those, if you want to stick around and ask some questions, feel free. For those in the room, for anyone joining online, feel free to shoot Hannah an email. I will pause on the contact slide at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you all for coming tonight.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.